Hey guys, Major League Fishing Pro, Jacob Wheeler here with my new Signature Series line of rods with Duck It Fishing. We have my 7.2 cranking rod right here, and this rod it is something it's taken a while to get that perfect action. Crankbaits can be very fickle, and having the right, having a lot of tip can be too much, and having not enough tip can, lose a lot of fish. So you really got to be careful. If there's one or two techniques that I'm really adamant about having the perfect action is a crankbait, especially like a square bill, a DT6, those medium running crankbaits in the springtime when those fish's mouth are pretty tough. That's when I'm really on top of having my actions just perfect. Deep cranking, it does matter as well, but this rod was more of that shallow running to mid-depth crankbait rod. And this is actually a graphite composite. I'm a very big fan of graphite composites. I've used it for several years, and I've used graphite. Not saying graphite doesn't work, but for me, a graphite composite, having a little bit of that glass in there, allows those fish to really load up on that rod. There's a reason why some of the best in the country, day in and day out, they crank with a graphite composite. Trust me. There is a reason, and that's why I had to have this in my lineup. And the thing about this rod is, it's a 7.2. It allows me to have a little bit of distance when I'm casting, but also short enough to where if I want to roll cast around, stumps or little laydowns, I'm able to do that with a square bill as well. So I wanted to make it to where you could do multiple things with it, and you could even throw up to a DT10 on it. It might be a little bit small for a DT20 or a little bit larger crankbait, but you can even throw to that mid-depth range, and that's the majority of a lot of your cranking. You'll see that I put a hook hanger right towards the front of the rod. Now this is one thing that I made, so for a lot of my rods I put them all up here in the front, except for the spinning rods I have them down low. And what I do is, for my cranking rod, I want to make sure that's pushed down all the way. So all I have to do is hook, put it right there, it's ready to go every time. For my flipping rods and other rods, I'll have it, if I'm throwing a Texas rig, I'll have it to where I can actually pull that up just a little bit. I'll just take some pliers, pull it up a little bit to where I can slide that right off. So that way I don't have to unhook my stuff. But for me, that's the best place to put my hook covers. I've had a good luck with that, and it makes it really easy to take them on and take them off, and that's important. The Keegan guides on this rod, they're a little bit larger to where I can get my line through there, maybe make a little bit further cast. I feel like that helps it a little bit, and then obviously the action of the rod. This is my thing with cranking rods. You can't do with what you do with graphite composite what you can do with a graphite composite. Like graphite, it works extremely well for a lot of different things, but for me, a cranking rod really needs to be graphite composite. I'm just a very big fan of that. And having that action of that rod where you have a softer tip and it bends down through there. You'll see a lot of my rods are very parabolic. And that's not whippy parabolic. That is just, if you really pull on it, really farther down the rod, it bends a little bit down through there, and that's not, it might be the subtlest little bend, but that's when you really pull on it. And that for me is, I feel like I have control over those fish. When I hook a big fish, I want to know that I have control over that fish and that fish doesn't have the control over me. So that's something that's really important. And with cranking, you want to be able to feel what's going on down there. You want to be able to feel the rocks. You want to be able to feel the stumps. You want to be able to feel all that stuff. But you also want to have a delayed response. When that fish bites that bait, you don't want to set the hook like a vibrating jig or even a jig or or a spinner bait. You don't want to set the hook really hard. You want to lean into them and allow the rod to do the work. And that's exactly what I designed this rod right here for, was allow when those fish bite it, you reel down and you keep cranking and it starts to load up and you pull into them, it's OV. It's over. You got them. And that's what I wanted. It doesn't happen right off the bat. This is the thing, is we had to go through so many different prototypes to make these rods right. Don't think it was just a one-off deal. You pick a rod up and like that'll work. This is my livelihood. And trust me, I take a lot of pride in knowing that I have the right actions. And over the years, what I've figured out through fishing and trial and error, I've had a lot of tough action rods that don't work, but trial and error and figuring it out. And so that's why when I went and joined the team at Duck It, knowing that it was pro-driven, knowing that Boyd was behind the company, knowing that the group of guys that I was working with, that we could dial in the right action so that the consumer could have what I love, what I feel like is the best. That's the reason why I'm so excited to bring you guys this series of rods.